Now, I think it's safe to say that I'm pretty botched. I'm pretty goofed in the head. My mind is a bottomless well of unenlightened and alarming thoughts. So, naturally, I decided to do a proper deep dive into my mental state to find out where all this comes from. What's the origin story here? What the fuck? And yes, when I was a small child, my parents irresponsibly allowed me to watch The Return to Oz. That's all it took. My brain is now scarred forever. This movie is creepy, okay? Especially watching it as a wee lad. Why is it creepy? Oh, I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the unnerving Wheelers, who make the flying monkeys look like kind and gentle Sesame Street puppets. Maybe it was a princess who removed the heads of some of the women of Oz and just leisurely replaced her own head with theirs. Oh, how can we forget about the Gnome King, who gets eerily more human-like as all of Dorothy's beloved friends get turned into ornaments. I mean, take your pick. Good stuff, especially for a kid. This did not do any permanent damage to my psychology. Nope. Well, if you are valiant and heroic enough to move forward, let's get this over with. Return to Oz is a 1985 dark fantasy. It was directed by Walter Murch, based off of L. Frank Baum's books, The Marvelous Land of Oz, written in 1904, and Ozma of Oz, written in 1907. It serves as a sequel to the 1939 classic, The Wizard of Oz. The original Wizard of Oz was produced by MGM Studios, and after Disney acquired certain rights to Baum's books, this was their initial attempt at an Oz film. The director, Walter Murch, was actually a legendary film editor and sound designer, working on classics such as Apocalypse Now and The Godfather. This was his directorial debut. However, due to production troubles, delays, and budget overruns, this film was almost canceled, and Murch was briefly promoted to a customer. He was shown the door. Fortunately, Murch rolled with some heavy hitters like George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola, and they convinced Disney to rehire him. And due to all of these troubles, plus the box office failure, Murch never directed another film again. Of course, he could be using all of that as an excuse. I'm guessing he probably saw the final product of this movie, and like me, fast-tracked his ass to a padded cell. Now, I know it sounds like I'm powerbombing this movie through a table, but in all honesty, Return to Oz is a visually stunning, dark fantasy that stays true to Baum's original books. So I've heard. I didn't read those damn books. I dropped out of school in the first grade. But you know, people who've actually read the books say that it stayed pretty true, and I believe them. Aside from those positive attributes, it was too eerie and unconventional for mainstream audiences at the time. I mean, people were expecting this,
You have to see the wizard.
but they got this. Over time, however, its remarkable effects, haunting and emotive atmosphere, and cult appeal have made it somewhat of a cult classic, and I actually do love this film. Maybe it's a Stockholm Syndrome, I don't know. So, the movie opens up 6 months after the horrendous tornado from the first film, and Dorothy has since suffered from insomnia. On top of that, she keeps talking about this whimsical place called Oz. Dorothy Gale is played by 9-year-old Fairuza Balk, most recognized by her later roles in The Craft and The Waterboy. Despite their financial troubles, Dorothy's Aunt Em and Uncle Henry come to the conclusion that Dorothy needs to get her head sorted by Dr. J.B. Worley, a psychiatrist who specializes in electroshock therapy. Yep, Dorothy's chicken, Belinda, finds a key in their yard.
Oh, see, Oz.
And Dorothy believes it's a sign that Oz is attempting to slide into her DMs. So they are off to the loony bin to see Dr. Worley and his jovial electroshock therapy. Yay! So Dorothy explains her adventure in the Land of Oz. She talks about the Scarecrow, the Lion, the Tin Woodsman, her
with
ruby
the
red slippers, all while the doctor's clearly thinking, this bitch is cray-cray. So he introduces her to the machine that will be Control-Alt-Deleting her memories and rebooting Dorothy 2.0. He even describes it as a friendly face. Look, it has a little cute nose and everything. Aunt Em leaves Dorothy to the creepy doctor and his strict and sinister head nurse, Nurse Wilson. A mysterious girl visits Dorothy in the hospital and basically tells her she has to escape. Later that evening, Nurse Wilson shows up with her orderlies and asks Dorothy if she would like to go for a ride. Nah, I'm good. You go. I'm busy. I'm busy sitting on this bed. We'll meet up later, is what Dorothy should have said. But she decides to take Nurse Wilson up on her offer, and they strap her to the gurney. This will definitely end well. The wheels squeak as Dorothy is pushed down the halls by the horrifying orderlies. After the doctor gets approval from Dorothy's health insurance company, he asks, "Are you ready, Dorothy? Are you ready to not know who you are anymore?" They put the headphones on and he turns the volume to full blast. Right before he flips the switch, lightning strikes and the power goes out. Phew! The doctor and the nurse both leave the room, and the random girl returns to free Dorothy for the big escape. The head nurse sees them both, or just sees Dorothy. I don't think that other girl exists. And the head nurse says, "So!" It chases Dorothy into a raging river. Dorothy latches onto a chicken coop and floats into the ocean. She wakes up to her chicken, Belina, who has been apparently using Rosetta Stone English.
How's my grammar?
Dorothy is finally back in Oz. Whew, the nightmare is over, right?
This is the deadly desert. Anything living that touches it turns to sand.
Ha! Yes, the nightmare is definitely over, right. And Dorothy is unaware that she is under government surveillance. While she snacks from a cool lunch pail tree, the Gnome King is informed that Dorothy is back and is accompanied by a chicken. And apparently, the Gnome King is also pissed about the price of eggs. Dorothy then notices that the Yellow Brick Road and the Emerald City were not included in Oz's new infrastructure bill, and because of that, they are both in ruins, and all the citizens turned to stone. Some of the dancing women lost their heads as well. Nice. She then sees that the Tin Woodsman and the Cowardly Lion have also been turned to stone. Dorothy then finds out what the creepy orderly and his buddies do on their weekends off of work. The Wheelers is what they call their mischievous gang, and they trap Dorothy into a dead end. However, she is able to use her key to open the wall and escape into a room. The dastardly Wheelers tell her that the Gnome King banished chickens from the land of Oz, so she is in big trouble. Then they laugh creepily and roll the fuck off somewhere. In here, Dorothy finds Tick-Tock. She winds him up, and he refuses to admit he's a spy tool and weapon for the CCP. The important thing is that he has 3 dials for thinking, speaking, and action that need to be constantly wound up for full customer satisfaction.
From now on, I will be your obedient servant.
They leave the room, and Tick-Tock beats the living shit out of the Wheelers by spinning his arms around really fast. Without reading him his Miranda rights, he forces the lead Wheeler to talk. The Wheeler asks for an attorney and, all right. He explains that the Gnome King signed an executive order to conquer the Emerald City, take its emeralds, and turn everyone to stone. He also says that only Princess Mumby knows where the Scarecrow is. Without an appointment, they show up to meet Princess Mumby. Well, hello, Princess Mumby. Princess Mumby takes Dorothy to her nightmarish Hall of Heads and swaps heads. Mumby then tells Dorothy that she will lock her in the tower until she gets to be around Waterboy age, and she will take her head as well. Even though Dorothy says, "My body, my choice," Mumby throws her in the tower anyway. Tick-Tock attempts to help, but the free trial on his action dial expired. Princess Mumby goes, "Huh," and walks off. Even though Dorothy feels like she was overcharged for the room, she does have a premium view of the Gnome King's mountain. In here, she meets Jack Pumpkinhead. He explains Princess Mumby has life dust or something like that.
You sprinkle it on something, and the thing comes to life.
And Dorothy has a light bulb moment. They decide to pay for Tick-Tock's monthly premium, and Dorothy sets off to steal the life dust. While Tick-Tock and Jack build something to fly away with, Dorothy quietly walks down the Hall of Heads. She wakes up Princess Mumby, and oh my god! Did I mention I watched this as a kid? Dorothy sprinkles the life dust on their newly built Boeing Air Max, and before Mumby can get to them, they fly away. In pursuit of Dorothy and her friends, some of the Wheelers fall into the deadly desert and get turned into sand. Dumbasses. Dorothy finds out that Oz Airlines are one of the last to offer complimentary pillows to their valued customers, and she falls asleep. Dorothy wakes up to find that Boeing cut corners assembling their planes, and it starts to break apart in the sky. Jack loses his pumpkin head, and they make a sharp turn to save it. Everything dismantles, and they make an emergency landing on the side of the Gnome King's mountain. Belina is hidden inside Pumpkinhead's Pumpkinhead, so the Gnome King thinks it's safe to FaceTime Dorothy and her army. They exchange a few nuh-uhs, and the Gnome King hyperloops Dorothy down into the mountain. Dorothy briefly bumps into the Scarecrow, In the Gnome King, Thanos snaps him into an ornament. Dorothy breaks down and cries. And the Gnome King wants to cheer her up by having her and her friends play Squid Game, Oz Edition. Here are the rules. Each of them gets 3 attempts to guess what ornament the Scarecrow is. You touch the ornament and say Oz. If you guess correctly, the Scarecrow will be restored and they can leave. Guess incorrectly, and you turn into an ornament yourself. So he sends in the Gump. Gump is the name of this thing. The Gump strikes out, and the Gnome King becomes more human-like. Not knowing that Billina is still hiding in Jack's pumpkin head, he sends him in, and he strikes out as well. Tick-Tock is next to go in. Princess Mumby takes the subway to Gnome King Mountain to warn him that Dorothy has a chicken. The Gnome King shows off his ruby red bottoms. He is then told that Tick-Tock stopped moving, and Dorothy wonders if she can cancel the monthly premium and get a refund. She goes in attempting to file a customer complaint, but finds out Tick-Tock is working fine. He has the brilliant plan to have Dorothy watch his last guess and see what kind of ornament he turns into, and that can give her a profound advantage. Hey, if you're not cheating, you're not trying to win, right? Tick-Tock cries a bit and then guesses incorrectly, and unfortunately, his plan does not work. Princess Mumby arrives to the Gnome King Mountain Station, and he makes her kneel. Lower! After Dorothy biffs her first 2 swings, she spins around and chooses a green ornament.
Oz!
Dorothy!
That's it, green ornaments. The Gnome King is pissed. He cages Princess Mumby, and she goes, Dorothy and the Scarecrow start bringing everyone back. The Gnome King, being a sore loser, decides to end the game. He decides to eat Dorothy's friends. Things get really, really scary. As he gets ready to eat Jack Pumpkinhead, Billina drops an egg into his mouth. Turns out eggs are poison to gnomes. So that's it. Yay, the Gnome King is dead from the price of eggs. Dorothy steals his red bottoms and uses them to restore Oz and teleport them the fuck out of there. It's beautiful. Everyone celebrates and it's jolly times in Oz once more. And that girl from the mental hospital in Kansas, turns out she's Ozma, the rightful queen of Oz. Ozma wishes Dorothy back to Kansas. Deuces, everyone, deuces. Dorothy is found near the river by Toto and her family. She is told that the loony bin burned to the ground via lightning strike, and due to the lack of insurance, it's gone for good. And Dr. Whirly died in the fire. Serves him right. Whew. Ozma visits once more, and Dorothy frolics around outside with Toto. The end. So there it is. The Return to Oz is definitely a giant leap away from the original Wizard of Oz, but I really appreciate that. It doesn't even try to copy it. It goes down some very dark avenues, but it still manages to be heartfelt. Dorothy isn't just skipping down a yellow brick road. Instead, she is navigating trauma, identity, and the terrifying maze that is growing up. Is the movie unhinged? For sure. Underrated? Absolutely. Unforgettable? No question. The director Walter Murch has indicated in multiple interviews that the themes of this movie are more about balancing the darker, more challenging aspects of life with elements of hope and resilience. His vision for the film was to follow Baum's books a little more closely, which do contain more darker and serious undertones. Now, there are some conspiracy theories about what happened. Some believe that the lightning strike that saved Dorothy from getting electroshock therapy was just her delusion. What follows is her mind just trying to hold on as reality gets zapped out of her. But she did wake up by the river she floated down in earlier, but who knows? I think the important thing to take from all this is that The Return to Oz is a story about hope and resilience. The movie does explore themes like courage, friendship, and the struggle between good and evil. Baum's stories often portrayed characters that, despite their shortcomings, embark on journeys that reveal their inherent strengths and virtues. So I've been told. Like I said, I dropped out of school in the first grade, so I didn't read the books. Thank you very much for watching the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please do me a huge favor and like the video. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. If you do all that, I will not turn you into an ornament. Take care.